today's workshop will be recorded just to make sure that we can share this information with other Firewise residents that might not have made it today. Also, we want to give a big shout out to the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network for helping to support us today. And let's get started. Thank you all for being here. All right, so our hosts today include 4 of us. I'm Carson Meghan. I'm Hawaii Wildfire Management's Community Education Coordinator. Also on the line today, Nani Barreto, our HWMO's Co-Executive Director. And there's Nani. We also have Mike Walker, who is the State Forester for the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. And also on the line is Meghan Fitzgerald McGowan, and she is the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association Program Coordinator for the Firewise Program. So some pretty big names here with us today. Let's go ahead and get started and learn more. But first, we're curious about you. Who are you? What Firewise communities do we have on the call today? So when you see a poll pop up, please select the Firewise community you belong to and then hit submit so the rest of us can see it.
Carson, I was able to launch that, so everybody should have a poll in front of them. If you don't see your Firewise community on the first list, indicate none of the above and you'll see it below. If you could please click which community you come from and hit submit. And by the way, once you hit submit, please in the chat box, in a few words or less, can you let us know what you hope to get out of today's workshop? And if you send it to everybody, we can see what each other hopes to get. I'm sharing the poll results, Carson, and it looks like, I'm just gonna let you know based on our registrants, because it's not all showing up, but as you know, we have 15 communities across 3 islands in our Firewise program, and on the call today, 14 of you are represented. So that's awesome. We have 28 folks that are on the call now, and I have a feeling that some more are gonna join us. We had more than 40 register for this workshop. And it looks like a lot of you, there's a great number that have at least two or more residents on today's call. And we have some chat rooms. There's people from Kaneohe. There's the Waikoloa Village Association. There's Waikiki Ranch. So all sorts of them. Great. I'm going to close that poll. And should we move on to the next screen, Carson, and I can let folks know what they can expect today?
All right. Yeah, let's go for it. So what to expect today? Oh yeah, go for it, Nani.
Okay, so basically the overall purpose is really for you to learn more about the statewide Firewise program, and along the way we'll get to know each other as well. So we broke the agenda up into 4 pieces. The first 10 minutes we'll give you an overview of the program that includes the background and goals of the program, and then we'll spend 10 minutes talking about the players. Who does what in this Firewise program? We carved out a good chunk of time to have a small group activity. So this will be a time when you guys get to meet each other and talk about your experiences. And then the last 10 minutes, we'll do a wrap up. Again, we don't have opportunities to share out throughout the first 20 minutes, but please use the chat box. If we can't get to the answering your questions in the chat box, we will definitely follow up in an email with responses to all of your questions.
All right, so for a little bit of background, let's get started with the big picture. So, hey, Meghan, you represent Firewise program at the national level. Will you please give us a quick overview on this program?
Yeah, certainly. So Firewise USA, originally Firewise Communities, it's gone through name changes over the years, started in 2002 as a pilot program with 12 sites across the US. And now in 2020, we have over 1,700 participants in 42 states. So NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, manages the program itself in cooperation with the U.S. Forest Service, the Department of the Interior, and the National Association of State Foresters. We work under a cooperative agreement with the Forest Service. So we fund it and they fund it. And the whole idea is we're providing this framework to help residents and neighbors work together to reduce their shared risk. Because when we look at large fires where homes and communities burn, you know, it's due to the conditions of the home and the vegetation, and neighbors influence each other. We provide the criteria that people have to meet on an annual basis to remain in good standing, or for those new communities to meet that recognition achievement. So I think that's, you know, the basics of what we have on the slide. I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan.
Mhm.
All right. So that was the national level. But what about our statewide program? So Kohala by the Sea was the first recognized site in the state back in 2004. So big kudos to those folks for being visionaries and taking the initiative. And also thanks to the state for helping them start that process with the hazard assessment. Hawaii took a pause in its participation in order to wrap its head around the wildfire program in general. Not a lot was known back then, but when we figured it out and we realized Hawaii had a huge wildfire problem, we have the same percentage of land burned every year as the fire-prone Western United States. So our residents wanted to take action, and we sort of jumped back into the Firewise program. HWMO assisted 13 additional sites across 3 more islands to get recognized over the past few years. And now we have 15 sites with hundreds of residents actively involved. Our mission and vision is one of community building and community building and capacity building within and between all of our sites. So we had a big growth spurt with a lot of different communities becoming recognized, and we are really looking towards that capacity building now. And so appreciate you all being here today and helping build that capacity. So some of the Firewise requirements. Megan, let's have you take us through the steps of becoming Firewise recognized, if you don't mind.
No problem. So I'm sure many of you are aware of these as you are already recognized, but you still have to meet these as part of your renewal. So one is complete a community hazard assessment. It might also be called a wildfire risk assessment. Different plans, different areas, you know, for different areas, but it's all the same. And it's looking at what are the conditions of your community in terms of the homes and the vegetation, and identifying successful measures, areas for improvement, and providing recommendations for action. And this is something that needs to be updated every 5 years. That's a new requirement as of 2018. But looking at that, these documents shouldn't be just sitting up on the shelf. They should be living and breathing. And as your community does work and makes changes, that should be reflected in your assessment, so you're working towards realistic goals. You need to form a Firewise committee or board, and that's a one-time thing, but you can update that board as years go on, as people come and leave. And if you want, there's an opportunity in your renewal application on the portal to share those members with us. And they should be from within your community residents, but also your partners, maybe your fire department, HWMO, or other fire-related staff. Create an action plan. So this is really what guides your community on what you do, and the recommendations in it will come from your assessment, and it is on a 3-year update cycle. So again, this was implemented in 2018, the requirements. So next year is when all sites from 2018 and prior who haven't done a new action plan will need to do it and submit it. And it doesn't have to be anything, you know, big. It can be just a simple Word document, maybe broken out by like 2020, 2021, 2022. What are you going to do? And it could be encourage more people to, you know, work in the 0 to 5 foot space, or share education. It's just identifying actions you can take each year. And then hold a Firewise Day. This is an annual requirement, and it doesn't have to be like a physical day where people are coming together, especially in this year with COVID and how it's affecting folks. It can be digital. Really, the idea is it's an opportunity for educational outreach within your community. So you could do an online video or an email campaign. Maybe you have a kiosk within your community where you can post information or talk about different things. It can be whatever works for your community. The idea is that you're just sharing information and connecting. And then probably the biggest one that can scare people, but really it's very attainable, is that annual investment. And it's the equivalent of $25.43 per dwelling unit, or the way I like to look at it is 1 hour of volunteer work per home within your community boundary. So if you have 100 homes, that's 100 hours. But if each home is doing an hour, it should be pretty easy to reach. And then all you have to do is tell us about it. So if you go to portal.firewise.org, you can fill out your application, and this year renewal applications are due on November 20th. And if you need any assistance, I know HWMO is there to help you, but I am as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. It's good to stay refreshed on those steps. And so who runs the program? You've probably seen most of these logos, and sometimes there's a little bit of confusion as to who does what. So we'll just run through that. It starts with a local community showing interest and requires 2 or more residents to get started. And with 15 sites across 4 islands, they come in all various shapes and sizes, participating at various levels and with diverse needs. And by the way, all of them are awesome. You're awesome for being here. By the way, it's also, it's a community itself that is responsible for submitting the Firewise application. New ones and renewals. So it's really, you have to take that initiative in order to become recognized and maintain a recognized Firewise community. And then there's us. We're your partner on the ground, HWMO. I'm your Firewise man. I want to help you any way I can. Call me up day or night, you know, don't rain or shine. I'm here to help you with anything you need, or just like talk story.
Hold on, Carson. We don't have unlimited resources here at HWMO. We don't want to overcommit, but yes, you're absolutely our guy on the ground.
Yeah, Nani's my boss, so she has to boss me around sometimes, but it's okay. Feel free to call me anytime you need any help. We're also here to help you with your hazard assessments and walk you through your action plans too. So we're always here with technical assistance. And as Nani said earlier, we're hoping to offer new opportunities for learning and sharing and build up those Firewise communities that we have already. And next, we have Mike, our state liaison, representing the agency that connects to the national program. And Mike, would you mind explaining what you do for the program?
Sure. So through NFPA's portal, I review all of the applications for the state of Hawaii. And basically, my only real role is to accept or reject the program applications. 99% of the time, it's an acceptance and approval. And then we forward those on to the NFPA. Another thing that the division does provide as available is that myself or some of the local branch protection foresters or forestry program managers participate in the hazard assessments if they're available, and we actually can give technical advice on things as well. So our real legit role is to just manage the applications and approve them or reject them. There have been times where I have sort of like looked at the deadlines and I haven't received anything from a community, and I'll try to reach out to the community and prompt them, be like, hey, you know, you're up for renewal this year and I haven't seen anything. Are you guys working on this? But for the most part, it's real easy.
Great, thanks, Mike. And Shelly just had a quick question. What are some reasons for rejection?
Often it's if you haven't done you haven't contributed the amount of money per dwelling unit or volunteer time, or have held your Firewise Day, or have just not even submitted the application, really is the main reasons. But
Okay. Thanks. Thank you for covering that, Mike. And then there's Meghan again at the national level. Meghan, would you mind explaining your role in the Firewise program?
Yeah, so here at NFPA, I'm kind of the final say, but really I'm the gatekeeper. So, you know, we rely and trust our partners in the States to send us applications that are ready to go. We do a quick read through, look for anything that maybe doesn't fit with the spirit of the program, and we might reach out with questions directly to that community or to the liaison or the regional coordinator working with them. But for the most part, I do a quick read through, I hit approve, and then I'm the one who helps get you your plaques and your signs and all those good things. And then I start communicating with you. One more kind of response to the question about what's rejected is, you know, I said that idea of the spirit of the program. We've had communities host all kinds of different events to try to make them count towards Firewise, but it's really about people reducing risk, taking action on the ground. So if you're hosting a wine and cheese party where you might talk about wildfire risk reduction for a minute, that really doesn't count towards your educational outreach. Yet we've had people try to claim that as their annual meeting for the year. So those are the kinds of things I look for just to make sure people are really within the spirit of the program and what our end goal is of reducing the loss to homes and communities.
Great, thank you so much, Meghan. So here it is, all wrapped in one nice org chart. And we have other partners too. As always, we have the county, the state, and federal folks, plus our neighbors and friends, and across neighborhood boundaries who we can't do this work without. So it really takes everyone to reduce that risk. And we're all very important within that process. So I'm gonna get into a few Firewise tips here and things that aren't always so obvious, just some random things that have come up over the years. And I'll go ahead and read these off for you. Number one, we have dwelling units and drawn boundaries do not have to be adjacent to each other, but do need to be in somewhat close proximity. Not all units in the neighborhood need to be counted. All right, and then number two, USAA is the only insurance company at this time giving discounts for Firewise participation. So, you know, if you have USAA, give them a call, right? And we'll work on those other insurance companies for you. All right, if resident leaders change, the previous person needs to go into the portal and add a new resident leader using the managed contact system. This is to make sure you maintain the longevity of your Firewise status. And if you have a resident leader that leaves, it can be sometimes difficult to transfer those titles. Number four, all Firewise committee members are able to be inputted as resident leaders in the portal. So some pros of this are that everyone is involved with that process of submitting the application. They will all receive the communication from NFPA, but it might make it a little bit more confusing when it comes time to submit that application. Some communities like to have just one person as the resident leader inputting that information. Some communities like to have everyone on the committee inputted into the Firewise portal as a resident leader so that they can review and overlook everything and sort of collaborate on it and make sure that the application looks good. Number five, renewals are to be done by the community resident leader. HWMO can log in and troubleshoot with you, but will not submit for you. If you have trouble with renewals, please check out this 3-minute step-by-step video. We're gonna send you that video in a email after this. Just if you need any help troubleshooting, that video is a really good one to watch. And number six, be sure your hazard assessment remains current. Meghan kind of went over that just recently, but it needs to be updated every 5 years.
Firewise tip number 7. Should I take it, Carson?
Yeah.
Okay, so tracking volunteer hours, we completely recognize can be tricky sometimes. Our one recommendation is to try to keep up on it on a regular basis instead of waiting until the very end of the year to track it. And we do recognize that this is a challenge and a barrier sometimes for some groups. And so we're in the process at HWMO of developing a tracking tool that we will include in a future toolkit for all of our Firewise sites. So stay tuned for that. Firewise tip number 8, don't hit submit until you're ready. Once you hit it, Mike Walker, our state liaison, he'll get it. And he cannot edit your app once it's been submitted if there's any changes that you want to make. He will either accept it or deny it. It will be sent back to you, and that's how you can make any changes. So try not to hit submit until you're absolutely ready. And number 9, use the drop-down menu in the renewal app to navigate to the section you want to use. Some folks have had didn't realize there's that drop-down menu. And so if you want to get to another section in the application, you don't have to go through the whole thing. Just use that drop-down menu. And then number 10, I believe is the last one, is Firewise Days. As you know, this is a requirement that has to be met every year to get renewed. And some folks, I just want to be clear that a Firewise Day, you can be pretty creative. It doesn't have to be a community work day. It can be, but it can also be an education activity, an outreach event. It does not have to take place all in one day. It can take place over a series of days or over weekends or months. Just be sure to go into the portal and log those hours, and that all counts for your Firewise Days.
Great. And for the community wildfire hazard assessment, I'm just going to walk you through the process. I believe every Firewise community here on the call has a hazard assessment that HWMO helped put together. But just quickly, we'll run through the process. So basically, interested parties meet in the community. It usually involves HWMO, the local fire department, and any interested residents. We walk and or drive the community, and you learn, we share, and vice versa. So we kind of talk about those common themes that might be difficult to or dangerous for the community in terms of wildfire. We look at the risks and then the things that residents are doing really well. We discuss what we saw after walking around the community and understanding where the major risks lie, and we discuss next steps with you. It's usually a one-day thing for 3 or 4 hours or so. And then after the assessment, HWMO writes up the report. We include the site description, the potential wildfire risks, the common themes and concerns, as well as recommended actions in the near term and then the long term. And we also try to draft a one-page fact sheet based on those findings for you. Firewise committee, your Firewise committee then uses that to develop a 3-year action plan informed by the hazard assessment report. And so if any of you have not seen your community's hazard assessment, feel free to reach out and I can walk you through it or talk about it with you. And it's definitely good to keep updated also. And keep in mind, your hazard assessment needs to be renewed every 5 years. All right, any questions?
Hey Carson, you know what I'm going to do? There are some questions in the chat box, but let's table those, and I just want to stick to our timeline and respect folks' times and make sure that we're out of here by 1. So we'll consolidate all the questions and follow up with you guys on an email with responses.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll go ahead and keep moving. Thanks.
Okay, next up is our small group activity. This is when we finally get to stop talking and instead get to hear from you guys. So we're going to break you up into groups of 3, and we ask that you spend the next 15 to 20 minutes discussing with each other your experiences as residents of Firewise communities. Now it's time for you guys to be the expert so that we can learn from you and you can learn from each other. So I hope you're okay with this. We do ask that you keep your webcams on or turn them on if you can. Carson, can you go to the next slide and I'll tell them how it's going to work?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So once we send you off into your breakout rooms, we ask that you turn on or keep on your webcams. First, introduce yourselves, then decide who's going to report back to the larger group. What you report back is totally up to you. There's no rules. There's nothing that's right or wrong. Each group will have about 2 minutes to report. And then number 3, the questions we hope that will guide your discussions are the following. We want you to talk about your successes. So what successes have you and or your community had with the Firewise program? Second, your stretches. What are the challenges or the roadblocks or the concerns that you've had? And then 3, what are your hopes? What do you hope to get out of the Firewise program? So those are the 3 guiding questions that will guide your 20-minute discussions. When you're in, and I realize that you might forget these questions, so I'll be sure to send you a prompt that reminds you of these guiding questions when you're in your small breakout rooms. Once the 20 minutes are up, you're going to be given a 60-second warning before you're brought back to the larger room. There's nothing you'll have to do. When I send you, you'll have to confirm that you're being sent, but that's it. And also, you may notice one of us popping in or out of your breakout rooms, and that's just us checking in with you, making sure everything's okay, more like a fly on the wall. Are there any questions before I send you off into your breakout rooms? Again, you'll have to have your speaker on, your microphone on, or you'll have to access your chat room. And we'll see how this goes. Enjoy. Okay, Carson, if you want to share your screen again, and we'll do our share out.
Yeah, definitely. All
okay.
Right.
So maybe a thumbs up for folks, how that went. I know we had some technical issues in some places, and I apologize for that. I'm not sure how I could have fixed that, but we'll learn as we go. So let's spend a few minutes listening to what you guys all talked about in your groups. So we popped into 4 of your groups and we asked you to share out loud. If I didn't pop into your group, what I want you to do is to use your chat box to type out the reporter, to use the chat box to type out what you would have shared with the larger group. You're off the hook for now. But we do have 4 groups that agree to take the mic and report back. You each have 2 minutes. There's no right or wrong what you share out, whatever some of the highlights were. And we're going to start with Group A. Can you identify yourself? Who is Group A reporter?
Hello, I have been volunteered to be the presenter for Group A.
I know that voice. It's Elliot.
Elliot Parsons. Should I go?
Go for it.
So there are a number of things that came up in our group. There have been some successes. One group has purchased a mower with a flail to help reduce fire fuel loads along roads. There's a green waste day coming up. Idea for $50 restaurant certificates for people who take their green waste to the Puanahulu Green Waste Station. There's discussion about some challenges. Halikoa is one big challenge. As when on fire, it can send burning seed pods up to 7 miles away and act as a firebrand, start fires elsewhere. There's access issues, fire trucks not being able to get up streets. Having a community one way in, one way out sounds like a fairly common challenge, and the need for other evacuation routes. And then even when those evacuation routes exist, it's not clear who has the keys to the locked gate on the evac route, which could be a problem. There's how to wake people up in case of a fire that's moving quickly, if it's at night. How do you evacuate kids from school if it's during the school day and the parents are gone? I guess in other big fires, people that have died haven't been able to evacuate successfully from the community. And potential solutions, grazing is one potential solution. Also the need to find out who owns the property, such as on Quai High Road, where there's a lot of grass and helico on the sides of the road, but it's not clear who the property owners are that would need to be contacted in order to do that fire fuels reduction. So a lot of good discussion.
Awesome, thanks Elliot. Thanks for sharing out. So we're going to ask Group B, but before we do, I just want to remind everybody else that wasn't assigned a group letter, you won't be taking the mic. Instead, we ask that you use the chat box and type out some of the highlights that came up from your discussions, and we'll save the transcript and send it back to you guys. So Group B, who is the reporter for Group B?
Julia, here.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you. Well, Elliot, I think you must have Don on your group because some of our thunder was stolen from our report, with Don filling you in on a lot of the challenges, good, bad, and ugly here in Waikoloa. So other than that, I'm really concerned with the comments for, well, our successes were all stated in the previous group. The stretches, one of the stretches I can add here regarding the evacuation, the Waikoloa Village Association, we had an emergency plan, okay? And the WVA has taken the stance that they don't have any responsibility because they might incur liability. So it's tough to walk that line and try to be a true, true in our efforts to be safe, to keep our people safe to evacuate. So that's the challenge, just to hinge on what Elliot had mentioned. There's a lot of dead trees at Waikiki, huge dead trees that need to get removed. So that's going to be a big undertaking under a stretch for Waikiki's group, and hopes to get involved. I'm like trying to think of doing something with teens and seniors, teenagers and seniors working together to keep their green space cleared up, and have younger people go and help them, and maybe have junior Firewise folks, in the community, like doing something with the school, and also promote like a zero skate contest or something that we could do, and we might use our Firewise garden here in Waikoloa to promote that, and then have people in the community who do have those gardens maybe get an award. They can get involved in a contest to conserve water and be smarter with their planting in their yards to help their defensible space. That's it for us.
Gosh, thanks, Julia. I'm inspired. Those are some great ideas. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to Group C, and please don't forget the other ones. Type it into the chat box. Who do we have from Group C?
Hi, it's Erin. We had 4 people, 2 of which have single family homes, and 2 of us from a condo community, 2 from Big Island, 2 from Molokai. But what was interesting is we share the same successes, stretches, and hopes. So some of the successes were about education and awareness, and having the community days, ladder fuel reductions, and the grant monies, how that's been hugely important in getting rid of some of this ladder fuel. Some of the stretches was finding a way to inspire other owners to get involved in the program. And then having certain community days to go without, how would I say this? It's just the same people showing up. So how do you go outside of that group and to inspire people, but also taking in consideration people's physical limitations. So providing things that everybody could get involved in. And then we do have some of the same issues as far as staging areas, evacuation route. And then the hopes are about getting people involved and motivated and inspired. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, Group D is now off the hook because we are running out of time and we want to do a quick wrap up. So please use this time to type your highlights into the chat box, and we're going to move on to our wrap up. Thanks, everybody. And hopefully we can continue these discussions in our future together.
Great. All right, so everyone, make sure to be on the lookout for a follow-up email with resources that we mentioned throughout this workshop. We're also going to include the workshop recording. Like I said, you are being recorded, so be careful though. If you share that far and wide, you might become famous. quick and easy follow-up survey. Please complete that. It'll really help us with these workshops. And we are fairly new to providing these workshops for you. So any sort of feedback you can give us will make these way better, and it will help us do our job better. And overall, these will become more and more effective the more we get that feedback. Also, we're going to send out the registration link for workshop number 2. It's going to involve outreach strategies for your Firewise community. Also, for those of you who have 2 or more Firewise residents from your community in attendance today, your committee will receive a $150 shopping spree request form that needs to be completed by June 26th, and you can use that $150 at Home Depot or Lowe's to buy any sort of fuel reduction equipment that you might need. Alrighty, and wrapping up.
Thanks, Carson. In closing, we ask that each of you uses the chat box once again to type in one word that best describes your experience with today's workshop. And as you type that word, you can also scroll through the chat box and see what your neighbors and friends said they got out of the workshop. In the meantime, I want to give a huge shout out to our amazing partners. We have our Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network. They fully supported the planning and us hosting this workshop today. And then Mike from the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, thank you so much for joining us on today's call. And Megan, you too, from NFPA. We really appreciate your partnership, and we can't do this without you. We're going to stick around for another couple minutes for those that have questions, or if you want to continue talking story, feel free to hang around. But I do want to thank you guys again for really bringing your whole selves to today's workshop. I know it's Friday, it's the middle of your day. We really appreciate it. And so until next time, hui ho.